everybody, welcome to part 3 in a series of videos for Vikings Gone Wild. In this video I'm going to show you some actual gameplay for the game. It kind of helps looking at some gameplay after you see a tutorial to make everything click, make everything make sense, and lets you also see exactly how the gameplay works. So I have the game set up for a 2-player game between the blue and between the pink player. It's the start of the game, have everything set up. We have our 6 bonus cards. We have the merchant bonus card, we have the builder bonus card, the explorer bonus card, and we have the blessed bonus card. Those are the 4 bonus cards that every player is going to. Since this is a 2-player game, we're going to 40 victory points before the end game will start. We have our starting divine favors. We have our Odin's path track set up. All the cards are shuffled. All of our players have a starting quest. For the blue player, they have zombie side, which requires them to kill a zombie that's in Odin's path. So we can't complete that quest yet since there's no zombies available quite yet. Our second one is the strategy card where we have to buy 2 attack cards in 1 round. That's going to give us 1 victory point. For the pink player, our starting quests are going to be the innkeep, which is going to give us 1 victory point as soon as we buy a tavern. Taverns are very, very nice. Allow us to increase our hand size, because remember the hand size for the game is 5. So with more taverns, you get larger hand size, more combos, more things you can do. The other thing we're going to have is the fight club, which is we just have to attack 2 buildings of our opponent. Since this is only a 2-player game, we know who our opponent is. And the nice thing about this quest is we only have to attack them. We don't have to succeed in those attacks. This doesn't say succeed in 2 attacks. It just says attack 2 of our opponent's buildings. If we do so, we're going to get 1 victory point. Everything's set up. Let's go ahead and bring everything down to the board and start this 2-player game of Vikings Gone Wild. Just as a quick reminder before we get everything started, remind everybody this is a preview copy of the game. So things are about 95% complete, but these aren't the actual full components. And what that means is just to make things a little bit simpler on myself, instead of using these little orange diagrams, since they're actually just pieces of paper, not cardboard tokens, which would be a lot easier to manipulate, I'm going to use these orange cubes to represent damaged buildings. I'm going to use these black cubes to represent buildings that have just been built. Again, I'm doing that just to make things a little bit simpler because it's a lot easier to manipulate those cubes and those little pieces of paper when they're laid on top of these cards. So the start of the round, the very first round, every single one of our players needs to draw a hand of exactly 5 cards. And remember, we all start with exactly 10 cards at the start of the game. We all have the exact same cards. So every player starts with a hand of exactly 5 cards, and we're going to be starting with the blue player as player number 1. And then the blue player is going to take their turn, and we're going to move over to the pink player. So remember, the first thing we do is we have the drawing phase. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have the production phase. Since none of the players have any buildings in play, we don't need to worry about production phase. We move directly to the player phase where players get to start playing their cards. So we're going to start with the blue player. We actually have a hand of exactly 5 beer cards at the start of the round. So we're going to start just by building a couple of buildings because it seems like a good strategy. Now remember, we always want to modify our strategy based on what kind of quests we currently have because, while it doesn't seem like much, eventually these quests are going to start being worth 3 victory points each. So it is something you may want to consider to start thinking about your strategy based on your quests. Think about your strategy based on what kind of cards your opponent is buying, and also thinking about you can also get a lot of victory points if your opponent starts building lots of buildings by attacking them. So these are all things we need to consider when we're thinking about our strategy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play 3 beer cards and we're going to build a gold factory. Now we're still at the level 1 town hall, so we need to remember that we cannot have more than 5 buildings. So that's why it's very, very important in the beginning to make sure we're building buildings efficiently and not building the wrong buildings and putting ourselves in a lot of trouble and slowing down our production. So we spent 3 beer cards to bring out a gold factory. Now, since it was just built, it's not going to produce anything at all. And then we're going to spend our other 2 beer cards for a total of 5 cards spent to go ahead and build a gold container. Now, both these buildings were just built this turn, so they're not going to have any effect this turn. And they can't be attacked this turn, but that's another story. We don't need to worry about that too much unless our opponent has any attacking cards in their hand. And if they do, we're at least safe. We don't have to worry about them attacking our gold factory. That's all 5 of our cards spent. We don't put them in the discard pile just yet, but that is the end of the blue player's turn. It's now time for the pink player's turn. For the pink player's turn, we're going to use a little bit different strategy than our opponent who's starting off building lots of buildings. We're going to start getting some cards that are going to give us lots of resources. Again, we need to think about what kind of quests we have, but we also want to think about our long-term goals, especially with which bonus cards are out there, because that's a lot of bonus extra victory points. This can be a total of 24 extra victory points at the end of the game if we play very, very smart. So the very first action we're going to do for the pink player is we're going to spend 2 beer cards and we're going to buy 1 of these crystals, and that also goes over here in our discard. Now the nice thing about this is this has put us ahead on 2 bonus cards already because we are now ahead in the Explorer and now we're also ahead in the Merchant. So right now, if this would be the end game, that'd be an extra 12 victory points for us. So we're already starting to gain extra victory points over our opponent. Even though they have the bonus for the builders, we're getting 2 bonuses. They would only have 1 at this point. After that, we need to refresh the Odin's River, see what card comes up next, and see if it's something we want to consider. It isn't. We're going to spend 2 more beer cards, and we're going to buy the other crystal, which basically is bringing us ever closer to lock in the Explorer bonus and the Merchant bonus. We have 1 card left. We have a gold card. We're going to use that to purchase a beer container. We'll put that in our discard pile. This was just built this turn, so we need to put a mark on it to remind everybody it was just built so other players know it can't be attacked. Not too important in a 2-player game, but definitely very important when we get to the 3 and the 4-player game. That's the end of the player phase. We're now done with the player phase. We move to the storage phase, which is not going to happen this round because we don't have any storage because we just built our buildings. So we can ignore the storage phase. We're going to move directly to the end of turn. And for the end of turn, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure we discard our hand. We're going to put that on the discard pile for both of our players. We then need to pull all the markers off the buildings, letting us know that these buildings are now usable the next round for production. And it also means they are now potential targets for our opponents on the next round, so we need to be very careful about that. Then next, the Odin's River path goes and advances down, so we're continuously advancing the Odin's River, constantly bringing out extra cards for the players. And now we need to move the first player marker to the left or clockwise. The pink player is now going to be the first player at the start of the next round. At the start of the next round, we start with the drawing phase again. None of our players have any taverns, so they're going to draw exactly 5 cards, which is all the cards we have left for both of our players. Because remember, we all start with exactly 10 cards at the start of the game. It's the same 10 cards for every player. It's 6 beers, 2 Vikings, and 2 gold. So every player gets their starting hand. That's the end of that. Now we need to do our resource production phase. This person has a gold factory, so it's going to produce 1 gold. This person has a beer container. They're not producing any beer, so nothing's going to go into it. So we need to concentrate on getting a beer container so that can start being worthwhile for this player. So that's the end of the production phase. We now move to the player phase. And now remember, the pink player is now the starting player at the start of this round. The first thing the pink player is going to do is they're going to announce an attack on the blue player. So they have a 1 strength attack. They're going to attack the gold factory of this player right here. Now we know there's no defense cards in that player's hand because they haven't bought any yet, so we don't have to worry about them defending that. So we did 1 attack. So if we look at the chart, we're going to see that's going to give us 1 victory point for the pink player, putting us up a 1 victory point, and this unit is going to be discarded. Now if we had actually attacked their gold container, there was any gold in that gold container, we could actually steal some resources. But since that's not the case, we can't steal any resources from them. We're going to mark that building has been attacked and show that it's damaged. Again, that really doesn't cause anything in a 2-player game, but in a multiplayer game, it lets everybody else know that they can't attack this player anymore this turn. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our second Viking warrior and we're going to go ahead and attack the dead zombie in the center. Now, if it had been this player using the zombie side quest, that still would not allow them to complete that quest because this quest requires them to attack somebody in Odin's path. So just to show you how that works so you don't get confused, but we're going to use this Viking warrior and we're going to go and attack the undead zombie for either a gold or a beer resource. And we're going to claim 1 gold, which we're going to put in our town hall. And then we're going to spend that 1 gold, plus we're going to use our 1 gold card for a total of 2 gold. And we use that 2 gold to go ahead and purchase the brewery. So the brewery is going to come into play and it's going to be damaged. So we don't have to worry about the blue player attacking this brewery this turn because we're pretty sure they have attack cards in their hand because they didn't have any last turn. So we can pretty much do the math and know they have at least 2 attack cards in their hand. So we know this brewery is at least safe this turn. That's going to leave us with 2 beer cards left over. We're going to use both those beer cards to buy this gold container. Again, it's going to have a construction token put on to let us know that it was just constructed this turn. That's the end of all of our cards. That's all the end of our actions. It's now the pink player's turn is over. We now get to move over to the blue player's turn. The blue player on their turn actually has a lot of options they can do at this point because we have 2 attack cards, we have 2 gold, we have 1 beer. Now unfortunately one of our attack cards is going to go to waste because we know we can't attack any other player's buildings because both these buildings are just currently being constructed. Well, this is the one we could actually do because we have 2 attack cards. This one we can't attack because we don't have enough attack power, and the same thing with this one, plus it was just built so we can't attack it at all anyways. So we know that our best option, since there's nothing here to attack here, no zombies have come out yet, we know that we use one of our attack cards to attack the zombie in the center of the board, and that's going to give us 1 resource. The real question we need to ask is which resource do we want? Now we have the options. We can use this gold to help us make purchases of buildings this turn, or what we could do is we can use it to go ahead and gain some beer, which will allow us to take that beer plus this beer card to turn it into a gold card to give us another gold, which will allow us to use all our resources efficiently. Plus it also allows us to keep that produce, which will allow us to move over on a gold container. And remember, resources on containers can be used on future turns, or if we want, we can stack them all the way up to 4 resources, which is going to give us a victory point every single supply or every single storage phase. So I think our best option for what we're going to do is we're going to use one of our Viking cards, which is going to attack the undead zombie. Now remember, like I said earlier, this card right here, this quest card, requires us to attack a zombie in the Odin's Path. Attacking one of these zombies does not give us that quest reward, so the only thing we're going to get is a resource out of this. We're going to use that to go ahead and claim 1 gold, which we will put on top of our town hall. Then we're going to spend this 1 gold plus 1 gold card that's currently in our hand, and we're going to use that to purchase a brewery. We'll add that brewery to our city, and then we're going to put a construction token on to let us know it was just built this round. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to spend this 1 beer card, which is going to allow us to buy this 1 sword card, which will allow us to advance the Odin's River and show us some more cards coming out and give us some potential things we can do. Now we do have this other Viking warrior, but we cannot attack the zombie in the center of the board more than 1 time per turn, and there's a reminder on the board in case we forget. So that leaves us with 1 gold card that we can do something with. We're going to use that 1 gold card, and we're going to go ahead and purchase a beer container. And we're going to put a just built token on to remind us that it was just built this turn. That leaves us this 1 Viking card. There's nothing really I can think that we want to do with this 1 Viking card. So we're going to take this 1 Viking card and we're going to discard it, and that is the end of the blue player's turn. We now move to the storage phase, which is going to allow the blue player to move this 1 gold they produced into their gold container. Now we're going to come over here, and we're not going to have any resources we can put into any of our core storage containers because we don't have any resources available. So the pink player doesn't get to do that, so the only thing left to do is move to the end of the turn. So for the end of the phase, every player puts all their cards in their discard pile, which means we're going to have to shuffle these all up because we don't have any draw cards anymore. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove all the markers from all the buildings, so anything that was just built is now going to be accessible for the next turn. Anything in our resources is going to stay there because these are not technically markers removed, so they do stay on our gold container. So we don't have to worry about that. The next thing we're going to do is the Odin's Path is going to advance, bringing out more cards, and the blue player is hoping that this is going to eventually produce a zombie so they can complete their quest. Player order marker is going to move clockwise. That's going to be the end of the turn. We're now going to move to the third turn for the drawing phase, where each one of our players is going to shuffle up their decks, draw out a hand of exactly 5 cards, and then we're going to start the next round. So just shuffle these cards up really quick for each one of our players. Draw a hand of 5 cards. And that's it for all of our players. We're done with the draw phase for each one of our players. We now move to the production phase for each one of our players. So this player is going to produce 1 gold, and they're going to produce 1 beer because both these buildings are in effect now. This player has a brewery, which is going to allow them to produce 1 beer because that building is now in effect. That's in the production phase. We now move to the player phase with the blue player who gets to go first. For the blue player's turn, we actually have some pretty good cards to start our turn, and we actually have a couple different options. We have 3 beer cards, 1 gold, and 1 Viking warrior. Now we could send this Viking warrior over here to attack the pink player, which will give us 1 victory point. Remember, if we get the 5 victory points, we get to choose cards from the Divine Favor stack. And these are powerful cards. We definitely want to get those as quick as possible. Alternately, what we could use is this Viking warrior to get us a zombie, which allows us to get a gold. That'll give us enough gold to possibly start buying some of these other cards out here also. So we have a couple different options. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend 3 of our beer cards right now. And we're going to buy the gold bars, which is a very nice card, which gives us 2 gold for 1 card, which is very, very good, especially in the early parts of the game. So now we need to figure out exactly what we want to do. We have 1 gold, plus 1 gold, plus a Viking warrior. Now we could let that gold fall into our gold container, which is probably a really good strategy because we want to get our town hall upgraded as quickly as possible and possibly get some victory points out of it. So I think what we're going to do is we're simply going to take this Viking warrior, attack the zombies, which is going to give us 1 gold. We'll take that 1 gold plus the 1 gold we have for our card, and that's going to allow us to purchase a brewery, and that's going to be the max size for our town because now that our town has reached size level 5 and we only have a level 1 town hall, we can't build any more buildings for this player anymore this turn. That's all the actions we can do for the blue player. The blue player's turn is over. We now get to move over to the pink player. For the pink player, we're going to play a little bit more of an aggressive game. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend this 1 beer right here. We're going to spend 3 beer cards, and then we're going to spend a crystal as a beer card. So that's a total of 4 plus 1 is 5 beer cards. We're going to purchase our first Bone Crusher, which is a very, very nice attack card, which costs us 5 beer. And then just add insult to injury because we know the blue player does not have any defense cards because they haven't purchased any, and they don't have any cards left in their hand. We're going to send this Viking warrior out to go ahead and attack that gold factory. Again, that does 1 point of damage to the gold factory. That's enough to take out that gold factory. That's going to give us one more victory point, putting us at 2 victory points and closer to getting that divine favor card. That's all the cards we have left. We now move over to the storage phase. Nothing to store over here. This player definitely has a little bit to store, so they can move their tokens over. That's the end of the storage. Now we get to move to the end of the turn, where all the players are going to discard all their cards. Any tokens that they have on any other buildings are going to be removed, and then we get to advance the Odin's River. And then finally, the player order mark is going to trade over clockwise. That's the end of the round. It's now time for the next round to start. Now we're going to start seeing the tempo of the game changing for both of our players, because we've noticed that the pink player is starting to buy offensive units, which means that they can start attacking the blue player. And you're going to see in this game that as you start getting more and more offensive units, if you don't start buying defensive units to protect yourself from those aggressive players, they can start getting lots of victory points very, very quickly. I mean, 3 attacks on 3 buildings, and I do have 5 buildings as a blue player open to be attacked, and we see that 3 of them only have a defensive one, making them very easy targets, especially for the pink player who does have 3 attacking cards right now. But if I can get 3 attacks in one round, and if I don't have the defense to stop them, that's going to give them 5 victory points. You do that a couple times, you're going to start seeing their score pawn advancing very, very quickly. So now the blue player needs to start thinking about that. Do they want to buy defensive cards, or do they want to start going for the offensive strategy themselves? Or what kind of tactics they want to do? They want to start building up their town hall, so our town hall is not an easy target for the player. Because with a 4 defense and an easy 2 victory points for the pink player, that may become a very easy target for them, because the Bone Crusher can very easily take out that town hall. 1 attack with the Bone Crusher plus 2 of their Vikings is going to give a total of 7 points to the pink player. So it's something as a blue player we need to consider. So we're starting the next round. Each of our players has 5 cards. The pink player is going to be the starting player for this round. So every one of our players has their 5 cards. The next thing to do is do our production. So the pink player is going to produce 1 beer in the brewery. Our blue player is going to produce 1 gold in their gold factory, and they're going to produce 2 beer in both of their breweries. We're done with the production. Now we get to go over to the pink player who needs a look at their hand, and hopefully hope they got enough attack cards to start causing some problems for the blue player. The pink player is liking the fact of thinking about a very offensive strategy with a whole bunch of attacking units right now, so that's the strategy they're going to stick with, at least for the time being. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to use their Viking warriors, and instead of attacking the other player, they're going to attack the zombie in the center of the board, and that's going to give them 1 beer token. We'll put that beer token in our town hall, and then we'll use that beer token, plus a beer card, plus a crystal as a beer. That's going to give them a total of 3 beer. That's going to allow them to buy the Elven Archer. They'll put the Elven Archer in their discard pile. Now remember, we're trying to get this attack 2 buildings bonus. So that's what we're really working for right now. We have 2 gold cards left over, and there's a couple of things we can do with this 2 gold cards. We can do recipe theft, which allows us to take resources from the other player, which is always a good thing to do. The more you can deny resources to the other player, the better it's going to help you. So that's not a bad card to do. Or we can get the brewery, which is going to be a constant amount of resources every single turn, so we start filling up our beer container. Now remember, we only have a level 1 town hall, so we can have a total of 5 buildings. We only have 3 right now, so I think that's actually what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and build our second brewery. We're going to mark it as just built this turn, so we know our opponent can't attack it this turn. That's going to be it for the pink player's turn. We now get to move over to the blue player's turn. So the blue player for their turn needs to remember what we were talking about earlier. They need to start thinking about what the pink player is doing. They're buying lots of offensive cards, so we need to think about defending ourselves. We also need to start thinking about completing some of these quests for victory points. We know we need attacking units to start getting rid of that undead zombie to complete 1 quest. We also know we need to buy some attacking cards to complete that 1 quest right there. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to spend 3 beer cards to purchase an Elven Archer, which will be 1 purchase for us. Then we're going to go ahead and spend all 3 of these beer tokens right here, which is going to allow us to buy a second Elven Archer. That's going to allow us to complete our very first quest, buy 2 attack cards, which we have done. We're going to flip our card over, and that's going to give us 1 victory point on the victory point track. And then we get to draw another quest to replace it, and we're going to see that the next quest we're going to get is the captain card, which means that we have to buy 1 Drakkar, which is also a good card to buy, so we'll be doing that eventually. Not this turn, though, because remember, you can only complete 1 quest per turn. And now that does leave us 1 gold, plus 3 other gold if we want to spend them, plus a sword card, which we can't use this turn, unfortunately, so we need to figure out what we want to do with remaining gold. Well, like I said earlier, we know the pink player is starting to buy lots of offensive cards, so we want to think about that very, very carefully. So we're going to spend 1 gold, plus 3 other gold for a total of 4 gold, and we're going to buy the very first sheep cannon. We're going to put that in a discard pile. We're going to discard the sword. That's going to be the end of our turn for the blue player. That's it for our player phase. We now get to move to our storage phase. So the blue player doesn't have anything to store because we used everything up. So the pink player is going to store one of their beers in their beer container. That's going to be it for them. We're going to discard all of our cards for both of our players, and every single one of our players is going to remove any tokens they may have on their buildings from being built or from being attacked on that current turn, which we don't have to worry about because there were no attacks. Then next thing we're going to do is we're simply going to advance Odin's River down the track to see what kind of cards are going to come out next. We're going to get another zombie card, which makes the blue player very, very happy. That's the end of the turn. There's the only thing next to do is for all of our players to draw a new hand of cards. And if they can't draw a new hand of cards, they just got to shuffle up all their discard piles, draw a complete new hand of cards, and we're ready to start the next round. Every single player goes ahead and gets all their resources. This player has 2 breweries now, so we're going to gain 2 beers. This player over here has 2 breweries, and they also have 1 gold factory, so we're going to make sure we grab that. And now the blue player gets to look at their hand of cards and figure out exactly what they want to do on their turn. So the blue player on their turn is going to get a little bit aggressive, especially since they want to start scoring some victory points. They want to start doing some things to start completing some of these quests. So the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to send one of their elven archers out here to attack one of these undead zombies. Now we have 2 different options we can do. We can attack this one, which will give us a beer and a victory point, or we can go for the gold and a victory point. Well, we know we want the beer and a victory point, so we're going to kill this zombie. Now zombies, when they're killed on the Odin's River, don't go in our hand. They go all the way over to the discard pile. We just need to make sure we take our 1 victory point, and we need to take our 1 beer. Put the beer on the town hall. We will take our victory point, putting us at 2 victory points. And that's going to be our very first action. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to spend 2 beer, plus the beer we got in our town hall, which is going to allow us to buy another elven archer. And then we're going to spend our elven archer and our Viking warriors, and we're going to go out and attack the town hall of the pink player. Now the pink player doesn't have any defensive cards. We know that for 2 reasons. One, they haven't purchased any, and also we know that for the simple fact that, well, we know we watch what they do and trying to pay attention. So we have 4 total attack. That is enough to go after the town hall. So we're going to get the victory points for not only for attacking 1 building, plus 2 more victory points because we attacked the total of the town hall. That's going to be a total of 3 victory points from us, bringing us from 2 victory points up to 5. And now we get to pick a divine favor card. So when we get the chance to pick a divine favor cards, we get to actually flip over the top one on the deck, and then we get to decide which among the 3 of these divine favor cards we want to take and add directly to our discard pile. So now the blue player actually has a really, really tough choice here because these divine favor cards are very, very powerful. Now some of them aren't as powerful in lower player count games, such as the beer taxes card, which isn't quite as powerful in a 2-player game, but in a 4-player game it can be very, very powerful. Whereas opposed, there's 1 card in there, it's an attack card, which allows you to attack all of the cities of 1 player, which can be very, very powerful in a 2-player game, especially if that player has lots of 1 defense cards, which can give you a lot of victory points. Whereas in a 4-player game, other players can stop you from attacking other players by kind of targeting your chosen target. So these divine favor cards you have to be very careful of because some of them are very powerful in lower player counts, some of them are very powerful in higher player counts, so you need to factor that into your decisions when you're picking those cards. So the real decision we have as the blue player is if we want Helga, -2 to any purchase on turn, pretty darn nice card, and then we also have Alvis, which is going to allow us to attack with a strength of 3. And every time we do, we get to draw 2 cards. Now, increasing your hand size is very, very powerful in this game. I'm sure you've seen that the limited hand size of only 5 cards has limited my decisions, which is why you want to start working again these taverns, which can increase your hand size. Well, this hero is also going to increase your hand size, which is going to give you extra options every single turn. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take Albus because a 3 attack plus the ability to draw 2 extra cards when we make that attack is very, very powerful. So that's all the actions for the blue player. The blue player's turn is done, and we now get to move over to the pink player and needs to make a decision with their 5 cards what they want to do. The pink player for their turn actually has a lot of decisions they need to make. They need to be very, very careful because they've seen the blue player purchase a lot of the elven archers, which means that they're going to start getting very, very attack happy very, very quickly. So we need to start considering what they're doing, start being defensive, start building our resources very, very quickly. Otherwise, we're going to build ourselves into a hole and start watching the blue player start racking in the victory points very, very quickly. So we need to play very smart here at this point. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend 3 beer, and we're also going to purchase an elven archer, because we want to have a little bit of offensive power to protect ourselves. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to send this unit card to go over here and attack the zombie, which is going to give us 1 gold. And then we're going to use that 1 gold plus the crystal as a second gold. That's going to give us 2 gold, which is going to give us a cannon to help start protecting our cities from the blue player we see who is starting to get extremely, very, very aggressive. That does leave us with 3 beer resources left on the board. Now we can use those 3 beer resources if we want to purchase a gold factory, which is going to help us with one of the problems we're starting to have is we're not having the gold we need to start making all the purchases every single turn. So that's actually going to be our best decision. Because the one thing you don't want to do in this game is back yourself into a corner with the limitations of your town hall sides. Because you can actually back yourself into a corner if you're not playing smart and not being very, very efficient. So we need to make sure we play smart, keep our resources pretty darn even, and protect ourselves from a very, very aggressive blue player. And speaking of the blue player, I just realized I forgot to take the extra experience point or the extra victory point for the zombie side quest when I killed the zombie. So that would have put us at 6 victory points right there, and I do need to make sure I draw another quest for the blue player. So now we get to go into the storage phase. We're going to put 1 gold token over here. We'll put the 2 beer tokens inside our beer factory. Nothing to store over here. That's going to be the end of it. All of our players need to discard all their cards into their discard pile. And then we need to move the player order token, remove all the tokens from any of the buildings that need to be resolved, advance the Odin's River, and then it's time for our players to draw a hand of 5 cards and start the next round. At the start of the round, every one of our players needs to draw again a hand of exactly 5 cards. Once all of our players have built their hand of 5 cards, we're going to go ahead and figure out exactly what we're going to do with each one of our turns. So we have 5 cards for each of our players. The pink player gets to be the starting player. All we need to do is make sure we grab all the resources for the buildings that we currently have that are going to produce. And then we get to move on to the player's action round, starting with the pink player. Now the pink player has a hand of cards. They manage to get their Bone Crusher, which is very nice. They manage to get their Viking Warrior, and they also manage to get 3 beers. So it looks like it's time for this player to start getting very aggressive and start earning some of these quests so they can start getting some extra victory points. So the first thing that we're going to do with this player is we're going to send our Bone Crusher out to attack the town hall. We're going to send the Bone Crusher over to the blue player to attack that town hall. Now the 4 attack is equal to or higher than town hall strength. So us attacking that town hall is going to give us a couple of victory points, except for the fact that the blue player was quite ready for this, and as a quick card play, they're going to smile at the pink player, play their sheep cannon, which is going to add 4 to the defense of their town hall. Their town hall is protected. Nothing happened at all. No points are going to be exchanged because we can't add anything to the attack or any extra attack cards once the attack has been declared. So that attack is actually wasted. And then we're going to go ahead and spend our next card because we wanted to do 2 separate attacks for our Fight Club card. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Town Hall, but we can use this card right here to attack the Gold Factory, which will be worth 1 victory point at least for us. That's going to give us 1 victory point. We'll mark the Gold Factory as having been attacked by this player. We've completed 2 fights, so we're going to gain 1 victory point. That's going to move us up to 4 victory points. We're going to grab another quest under our board, and we're going to see if the next quest we need to do is earn at least 3 victory points during 1 turn. We're going to see if we can figure out how to do that. We have 3 cards left in our hand, 3 beer cards, and we need to figure out what we want to do with those beer cards. As a pink player, we're liking the idea of keeping the blue player on their toes and forcing them to buy a whole bunch of defensive cards, so we're going to spend 3 beer cards. We're going to spend 2 beer resources, and we're going to go ahead and buy 1 more Bone Crusher, adding that to our our discard pile. That's the end of the pink player's turn. We now get to move to the blue player's turn and figure out exactly what they want to do on their turn. Again, we as the blue player see that the pink player is getting very aggressive, so we're going to have to do something to protect ourselves. We're going to spend 2 beer cards and spend those over at the merchant, turn those 2 beer cards into 1 gold, which we'll put on our town hall. Then we'll spend 1 gold, 2 gold, 3 gold, 4 gold, for a total of 4 gold, which is going to allow us to purchase a sheep cannon. Again, that's going to help protect us from a very, very aggressive pink player. We have 1 beer card left. Nothing really to do with it. We're going to discard it, and that's going to be the end of the blue player's turn. Next thing we need to do is we need to move any resources over into any storage bins. That's going to give the blue player 1 more victory point because they have 4 cubes in their beer container. We have 1 cube to move over here for the pink player. That's it for that. We now get to move to the end of the turn where I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up here. I think I've shown you enough gameplay now for you to figure out this is going to be a game that you and your game group are going to be enjoying. Now, like I said in the overview for the game is very light thematically, but there are a lot of good decisions that go in the game. Lots of things to decide on how you want to play the game, how you want to affect your strategies, and what you want to do based on exactly what the other players are doing. Now, in a 2-player game, it's very easy to watch what the other player is doing and base your strategies upon what they're doing. But that gets a little bit more chaotic when you turn this into a 4-player game, because it gets harder to watch what everybody's doing, and everybody becomes a different target for every other player, adding a lot to the strategy and a lot to the fun of the game. You're going to see lots of different strategies evolving for the game. I hope you enjoyed this sample gameplay video for Vikings Gone Wild. If you enjoyed this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.